Hello everyone, from channel Crackit, I am Dattatreya Ganmal bringing you a series of lectures in Java. Let us start our first lecture from Java in Networks. You will come to know why I am starting with Java in Networks very soon. Now, what is network? Network is nothing but interconnection of computers. We call it as a network. That means a computer which is connected to any other computer with some means. That means may be wired or wireless. When such interconnection is there, then we call it as a network. So here in the image you can see that a system is connected to another system, maybe through server, maybe wired, maybe wireless. Okay. Now why I am teaching networks, you will come to know. Let us take one more example of a networking where a person sitting in California wants to communicate to a person sitting in Mumbai. Now they are diversely separated. They are connected either through wired or wireless means with some help of servers, etc., etc. Now when a person sitting in California wants to send a data to person sitting in Mumbai, it is absolutely possible today, but earlier when there was no language like Java, earlier there were only two languages like C, C++, some COBOL or earlier old languages. With help of those languages, it was very difficult to send such files over a network. Why? Let us see again. Now, networking. What we have in networking? The primary purpose of networking is resource sharing. You can share your resources. It may be a file, maybe an executable file, maybe a simple image or a video, etc. Okay. Now, if a computer asks for a request to a server checks whether that request is for a request of a file or for processing. Based on request, it will respond. Then we call it as a response. So there is a request and response. So in networking, we have a request response going on. Now, why we are studying Java in networking? Why there is need? First, why there was need of Java in networking? Before that, we need to understand the working of C and C++. Let us try to understand execution of C and C++ programs, how they used to execute. We know that we write a simple program and save it as .c file. Let us take an example, demo.c file. Okay, you have written a C file. Now when in C program, you use either some IDs like Turbo C or code blocks, etc. and you compile it. When you compile this C file, what happens? A OBJ file is created. This OBJ file is nothing but a machine equivalent file. C file is not understandable to a machine, therefore it needs to be converted. So that conversion is done using compilers. So this compiles and creates demo.obj file. Demo.obj is completely machine file. Okay. And this demo.obj file needs to be executed. Once you execute demo.obj file, a demo.exe file is created. It is generated. And this demo.exe file is run on a system directly. Okay, this is a simple flow of execution of C or C++ program. If I go into detail, what exactly happens is, suppose this demo.c is of 10 lines code. Okay, I am writing a simple factorial program. Okay, that let us assume that it is of 10 lines. Okay, what happens after compilation? Demo.obj gets created, which is machine language, which is in binary form, that is 1 0. That will also be equivalent. If I write a printf, printf will be represented in 1 0. If I write scanf, scanf will be represented in 1 0. Likewise, 10 lines code will be generated here. What line to line codes will be converted to binary form. But the problem is demo.obj file is not directly executable. Why? Because it is not complete. Demo.obj file is not complete. Complete in the sense, there is printf. When you write printf, the definition of printf needs to be searched. That is present in its header file stdio.h. Similarly, scanf definition is also present in stdio.h. So whenever we are writing those header files, the definition is missing. Printf will go for a search finding its definition. It will not get because it is present in stdio.h file that need to be brought. That bringing stdio.h file is done by executor. When you execute, what happens? Header file is added into my demo.obj file. Let's assume stdio.h file is of 500 lines. That 500 lines plus this 10 lines are combined and added into one file, that is demo.exe file. So here it will total become 510 lines of code. Okay, now this is complete file. Demo.exe file is complete. Now printf definition is present inside this file itself. So no need to worry about searching for any other file. It will directly execute. Okay. Now, if suppose this whole exercise you have done on an X1 process, X1 system, sorry. On X1 system, we have, let's assume we have Windows 10 operating system and i5 processor. Okay. Now, Windows 10 operating system and i5 processor, once you do this, let's assume you have done it on your college system. Your college system is having this configuration. You have done this all compile, execution, and executed the code, and you are able to see the output of factorial or Fibonacci, whatever program you have done. Suppose this demo.exe file I will copy and take it to some another system. Okay, if I take it to some another system in my same lab, which I have done in my college, in my lab, and copy and you take it in pen drive and paste it in some another system. Mostly in labs in our colleges, we have same configuration. So when you copy demo.exe and paste it in some another computer, it will execute in the same lab if it is done with the same configuration. But if demo.exe you take it in a pen drive and bring it to your home, and at your home you have a different configuration, there is no Windows 10 or i5 processor, you have a complete different processor or a operating system, then it will not execute. Thing is, need to be understood, any one is changing. This we call it as a platform. X1 is a platform which is running on Windows 10 operating system and i5 processor. If any one will change, demo.exe will not run. You know that, you might be aware that when you double click on demo.exe, it will execute. If you have not tried, try it. Okay. So you can easily copy it. This is what executable file is. This is what your end application is. So people distribute this. Problem is, if suppose you have developed a good software, okay, and you have generated .exe and you have given it to your client, but your client is not having this Windows 10 and i5 processor, he is running some another application, then he won't be able to execute it. Then there is no point in developing a software which cannot be executed on another operating system or a processor. That's a complete failure. Okay, that's the drawback in C or C++. It is platform dependent, system dependent. Okay, it depends on your operating system or processor which you are running. Now, take an example. If I take this example demo.exe, if you try to execute on X2 system which is having Ubuntu operating system and i5 processor, will it execute? The operating system is changing here, so it will not execute. Any one is changing, it will not execute. If suppose you have copied demo.exe in your pen drive and taken it to X3 system where Mac OS is present and i5 processor is there, your operating system is changing, so it will not execute. Again, if I copy it and take it to X4 where Windows 10 is there and i5 processor, X1 and X4 are running on same operating system and processor, so it will execute. Remember that. It's most probably that it will execute here. If I take it to Windows 10, but here processor is changing, it is not i5, it is AMD processor, so it will not execute here. Again on X6, both operating system and processor are changing, it will not execute. X7, it is running on Windows 10 and Celeron, so again processor is changing here, it should not execute here. So this will not execute here. So basically what is happening, demo.exe is nothing but a machine file which is having instructions according to that particular operating system and processor. those instructions are dependent on that operating system and processor. If you copy this and take it to Ubuntu, that instructions might not be present in Ubuntu. That's the whole issue. So this machine language is generated based on the operating system or processor which is running. Let us see a simple example in Turbo C for C language program. Let us see its compilation and execution process. I have opened Turbo C over here. You click on File, New, and I'll write a simple program. Let us say hash include .h file. I have added an header file. Then we'll take a void main, and we'll have printf hello world. This is a simple program. Okay, now I will save this file as, I will save it in C Turbo C3 bin. Okay, this is what the location is over here. You can see bin demo.c. Now inside this folder structure you can see demo.c will be created inside bin folder. Okay, this is created. Now here you can see demo.c file is created. If you open it, we can see this is what we have written. So exactly it is happening and it is saved properly. Now if I want to compile it, when I compile, what happens, you go to Turbo C3 folder and here we have source. In source some files will be created. Let us see. As I explained, after compilation .obj file will be created, Alt F9. So here you can see demo.obj file is created. If you open this demo.obj file, it should be a machine file, machine language file. So here you can see it is something which is not understandable. This language is not understandable because this is a machine language. Here the size of demo is .obj file is 1 KB. Demo.c was also 1 KB. Okay, now when I try to run, that is execute, header file will be fetched and added into my demo file. Okay, once this is execution has happened, so in my folder structure one more file is got created, and that is application demo.exe file. This is also again 9 KB. This is how compilation execution happens. If you see here, this is 1 KB, this is 9 KB. Why some extra bytes over here? Because header file has been added into demo.exe file. Okay, now this demo.exe file is movable. You can copy it in your pen drive and take it to another system and try to execute there based on operating system and processor. It will execute. Okay, this is just a live demonstration of how compilation and execution of C program happens. Now, if the same would have been there in a network, a person sitting in California with i5 processor is communicating with person sitting in Mumbai with AMD processor, and he want to send a file which has to be executed here, that would have not been possible. It would have been complete error. Okay, so using Java, this is not possible. Using using C or C++, it is not possible. But to overcome this, Java has come into picture. So Java will run on any system. So we'll come to it. Okay. Execution of Java program. Now, what Java team has done, what James Gosling and his team has done, they have smartly understood the compilation and execution and modified it. Okay. Let's assume you have written a program demo.java. Like we have .c extension, for Java we have .java. In further lectures we'll see how to create these files. But now just try to understand that the way we have written in C, similarly we'll write it in Java, demo.java. When you compile, what happens in Java execution is a .class file is generated, demo.class file. Now what is this class file? Class file, what that Java team has done, they have written a bunch of instructions. Those bunch of instructions are class files. Whatever code we write in Java, that is converted into some intermediate language class file, which we also call it as bytecode. Why bytecode? Because every line you write, if you write a printf, that printf is equivalently converted to one instruction, which is in class file, and that is of 1 byte. Every instruction is of 1 byte, which is 8 bits. Therefore, we call class file as bytecode. Now, this class file you can copy from one system to another system and try to execute it. Now here, once you compiled it, this dot class file is directly executable. Okay, in C we have seen that there is an header file that has to be brought and executed, but in Java, dot class file can be executed on a system directly provided we have JVM installed. JVM is nothing but Java Virtual Machine. Now this Java Virtual Machine, it takes .demo class file and executes on this system. What is the role of JVM? JVM is to take this class file. JVM is the thing which understands .class file and directly converts and executes on the system. These instructions are converted to based on the system, operating system and processor. So JVM is smart enough to take class file and execute it directly on the system. So no exe files are created in Java. It will execute directly. So what is class file? Class file is, it is bytecode, consists of instructions where each instruction is of 1 byte, is understandable to JVM, that is Java Virtual Machine. What is the role of JVM? JVM converts bytecode to system understandable language. So this scenario is saying that if your system is having JVM, then it is executable. If suppose there is no JVM, if you give demo.class file on this system will never understand .class file, because that is completely created by Java team and which is understandable only to JVM. If JVM is not installed on your system, it will not execute. So JVM is nothing but a small file which has to be installed on your system so that you can execute Java files. Fine. Okay, now let us take some examples. Demo.class file, you copied it from one system x1 and taken it to x2 where Ubuntu is there, IFI is there. It is irrelevant of what operating system or processor it is running. Provided JVM is installed on the system, it will execute. Now here again JVM is installed, it is Mac and IFI, irrelevant, it will execute since JVM is there. The JVM is such a program that it can convert to the instructions which are of that particular operating system. So here it will convert it to Ubuntu operating system instructions. Here it will convert to Mac operating system. Likewise, it is smart enough to convert directly. Therefore, JVM should be there. Now here X4, there is no JVM. When there is no JVM, it cannot execute. X5, there is a JVM, it can execute. X6, the JVM is there, it can execute. X7, no JVM, it will not execute. So this is how the complete execution and compilation process is changed in Java, so that we call Java is platform independent provided JVM is installed on your system. JVM is a tiny program, no issues with JVM. Now let us try to understand the compilation and execution of Java. For that we need to go to command prompt, open command prompt. Now here you can see that the path is C uses HP1. That is what I have opened over here. Okay, now let us create a file. Don't worry, I'll tell you this how to compile and execute in later videos. For now, just try to understand what happens after compilation and what happens after execution. Notepad, demo.java, we'll write our Java program in Notepad. Okay, once we do that, demo.java will be created. Okay, that has to be created in this folder. So demo.java file has been created over here. Okay, now let us write a simple program. Import java.lang.star. Then we'll have a simple class demo. Don't worry, I'll tell you how to write this in later videos. For now, just try to understand the compilation. That is important. So system.out.println. This is used for printing. I'll write hello world. Okay, just printing hello world on the screen. That is my program. Okay, now let us save it. I have saved it. Close this program. Done. Now let us try to compile. How to compile Java C demo.java. When you compile, what happens as per our theory, it will create a class file. Okay, now if I come to the folder, there should be a demo.class file that has been created. Here you can see it is of type class. That's what I'm saying. This is a bytecode that has been created. Now this class file, you can take it to any other system and execute it. Now to execute that, again we'll come to command prompt and type java demo. If you type it, you'll get the output. I'm getting the output hello world. So that is what we can do. That copy this demo.class file, take it to any other system, it will be executed. Now this Java is nothing but JVM is present inside this Java command. So JVM will come into picture and execute the convert this class file to executable code and run it directly. Okay, that's what we have studied. So this is how what happens for compilation and execution of Java file. Okay, fine. Why Java is suitable for internet? As I said, it can be transferred because it is system independent. It can be transferred and eliminate security problems. Since there is no exe file that is generated, most of virus attacks will not happen. Tampering is minimal. Eavesdropping is also minimal. So any person can see, it will not understand class files. It is not understandable. And tampering is also, even if someone tampers your file in between in a network, what happens is JVM will not be able to execute it. It will show an error because that is completely tampered. JVM is easily, it will identify that the file has been tampered. Okay. Now, coming to features of Java. What are the features of Java? First, it is simple. Java is simple because there are no pointer concepts like C and C++. And Java is simple because the syntax which you are going to write is same as C or C++. So the syntactic change is not, there is no more change in syntactic, only a slight change will be there. Usually it will be same as you write in C or C++. Second, object oriented. Java is completely object oriented. So without objects, you cannot write a Java program, objects and classes. So everything has to be written in objects and classes. We'll talk about object oriented in detail in more videos next lectures. Next, distributed. Java is distributed. You write a program and you can distribute it. Even TCP IP, such kind of programs can be written in Java. So like Hadoop, MapReduce programs are there which are distributed. So because of Java, this distribution is possible. Next, it is robust. It has a very good exception handling capacity. Java. It will run in beautiful exception handling, so it can handle all kind of crashes that can happen. So it is robust. Secure, as I said, it is in class files are transferred, which is not able to tamper easily or attack easily. Therefore, they are more secure. System independent, you compile it on one system and try to execute on any other system. It is possible, provided JVM is there. Therefore, it is system independent. Portable, any irrelevant of even you compile it on a mainframe and take it on a small mobile phone, it can be executed. So it is portable. There is no restriction on size and processing any other thing. Next is interpreted. Interpreted means the class files are directly interpreted or executed on a system. Therefore, we call it as an interpreter. It will not convert into machine. Even though it will convert, it will not store it. It will directly execute it. Therefore, we call it interpreter. High performance. Java is high performance. Because of all this fluency and simple structure, it will be able to perform better. Multi-threading is possible in Java. We have multi-threading where we'll do a lot of things using threads and execute it more faster. Scalability is easily scalable. You write a code, distribute it, and try to expand it. It is easily possible. Dynamic. So James Gosling, long back, he has written a small animation program. Earlier, transferring file over a web browser were completely static, but James Gosling proved that it can be done dynamic. So he had created one animation which which can be transferred over a network, and it will interact. So now the things have gone far ahead. So dynamic web browsers, we have everything is dynamic nowadays. Okay, so these all things are possible because of this Java programming language. Coming to Java virtual machine, now we have seen Java virtual machine. Just now we have talked about JVM. If I zoom into JVM, it will look something like this. You have more things into JVM. What is JVM? What happens? We have seen that input to JVM is a class file. Let's say we have given a demo.class file as input to JVM. Okay, and the first part which will take this class file as an input is class loader subsystem. It will take this demo.class file and put it forward. What is there here? We have 5 things: heap area, method area or static area, Java stack, PC registers, native stack. Now heap area is going to store all objects. Whenever you are going to create an object, it will be stored in heap area. Method area, your code will reside here and all your methods will reside here. Java stack is going to contain all calls to method. Whenever you have a method call, that will be stored in Java stack. And to each method, we have register associated. So you have 5 methods, 5 registers will be allotted. You have 10 methods, 10 registers will be allotted. Likewise, PC register is a program counter, which keeps a counter of that particular code. And native stack is for C and C++. When you have a C and C++ code embedded, you want to call a C and C++ code in your Java, then that is possible with help of native stack. So it is completely for C, C++ libraries, this complete section. Next, the important part over here is execution area. What we have in execution area? In execution area, we have 2 things: interpreter and JIT compiler. Okay, now why we have 2 things in execution area, interpreter and JIT compiler? How exactly they are going to operate? Suppose, let's take an example. Example is, suppose you have a code print A and print B, and you have a for loop running from I equal to 1 to 10, and you have one more statement, print C. This is your code part. Suppose this is your code. Now when this code is in your class file, is given input to execution area. In execution area, as we have seen, we have 2 things: interpreter and JIT compiler. Let us take interpreter and JIT compiler. And we have execution area, complete execution area. What exactly happens? Let us see one by one. Interpreter. What is role of interpreter? Interpreter, when it reads this print A, what it does? When it reads print A, it converts to machine code and executes directly. And executes it directly. So let's assume this process, it is taking 2 seconds of time. Interpreter directly converts into machine code and executes directly. So let's assume it is taking 2 seconds of time for this. Similarly, printing B will take 2 seconds. We are assuming it is taking 2 seconds. And we have a for loop which is running 1 to 10. That means this for loop will run 10 times, which is printing C. So one time printing C will take 2 seconds, 2 time will take 4 seconds, 3 time will take 6 seconds. Likewise, 10 times it will take 20 seconds. I'll take one more row over here. The total time required for interpreter will be 24. Likewise, if I give this code to JIT compiler, if JVM gives this code to JIT compiler, what JIT compiler, how it is working, let us try to understand. If suppose print A is given to JIT compiler instead of interpreter, what it will do? It will convert to machine and stores that in memory. Stores that in memory. That means it is doing two things. It is converting as well as storing, and then it will execute. So for converting, let's assume it is taking 2 seconds. For storing, it will take 2 more seconds. Let's assume it is taking 4 seconds here. So JIT compiler is slower compared to interpreter because it is converting and storing it in memory. So here it will take 4 seconds, B will take 4 seconds, and printing C 10 times it will take how much? 40? No, it will not take 40. JIT compiler is smart enough, just-in-time compiler. Okay, JIT is just-in-time compiler. How it will work? First time print C will be done. It will be converted to machine and stored in memory. That machine code is available in memory. For this, it is taking 4 seconds. Next time, this loop will run once again, and it is doing the same job printing C. So next time, that particular machine code is available in memory. So it will not take any time. It will immediately execute it because the machine code is directly available in memory. So it will not take any other time. So total this printing C will take only 4 seconds, which is done only once. Even though we feel like JIT compiler will take more time, but if you observe for loop, when the repetitive task is there, it is optimum. So if I give this code to JIT compiler, it will take 12 seconds of time. But what execution area does, what JVM does, this is where JVM is coming. JVM, what it will do is, it will decide which line has to be given to whom, whether to interpreter or to compiler. It will take that privilege. So print A, it will give it to interpreter. Let's say it is taking 2 seconds. Print B, it is also out of for loop. Here also no need to store in memory because again it is not used. So JVM decides that it has to be given to interpreter. Again here when it is coming to for loop, JVM sees that print C is repetitive task. So what JVM does is, JVM is smart enough. So it will give this to JIT compiler. Even though JIT compiler will take 4 seconds for the first time, next time it will not take any time at all. So therefore here it will take total 8 seconds. This is the optimum time that we achieve using JVM. So JVM, what is JVM? JVM role is to choose from interpreter or JIT compiler. Once this is done, this is directly connected to operating system and it will execute. This complete JVM machine is installed on top of operating system. So therefore it will run directly on operating system. So I think JVM part over here is quite clear. Okay. So keep watching for next videos. Thank you.